Story 1. Hire an accountant, lawyer, and money manager. Set up trusts for nieces and nephews. Research charities to donate to. Build a house. Retire and travel. Story 2. Make my entire group of friends and family millionaires. Find a nice lake with no one near it. Build a house beside it. Clear some land. Get some excellent internet and a bunch of German shepherds and live there. Story 3. Buy as much forest as I can. And then hang out in nouveau riche places, and when some stiff upper lip jerk started talking about his Lamborghini, I would just say, "A Lamborghini? Bless your heart, my tacky friend. I have a forest." Story 4. Invest all $2 billion into various dividend-paying stocks or funds. Even at a 1% dividend yield, I'm pulling in $20 million a year, all while my $2 billion investment continues to grow. I'd live off the dividends and ensure my bloodline is financially secure until the world ends. I probably only need $500,000 a year, so I'd likely start a foundation with the rest to keep myself busy when I'm not traveling and having fun. Story 5. I would donate almost all of it, keep 50 million, and then have a comfortable life while continuing to donate. No one needs 2 billion. I could live happily with 1 or 10 million as well. I would donate much to science and keep giving to the less fortunate. I could spend my entire life making people's lives better and see the joy it would bring. Story 6. Buy a beautiful house in Nantucket. Establish trust funds for the children in the family and provide financial help for the adult members of the family, essentially whatever they wanted or needed. I would hire a personal chef so I never have to cook again, and other conveniences like that. I would also invest. Lots of charitable giving. Off the top of my head, I would create scholarship funds and give to many small nonprofits that are often overlooked, focusing on education, poverty, and animal welfare. I would call the power company in my city and pay the bill for anyone whose power is shut off due to lack of payment. Things like that. Story 7. I'd open small businesses next to other businesses that expand their branding. McDonald's, Walmart, Dollarama, 7-Eleven, Canadian Tire, etc. Story 8. I would try to find an island that is pretty much unreachable if anything happens to humanity. I am going to build that island to be completely self-sustainable, and then I am going to live there with my family. Story 9. Buy a house big enough for my kids to have their own rooms on a few acres. Set up savings accounts so they can manage their adulthood. Open a life skills training center for my community. Donate funds to our trade school so more people can access it. Buy my dad's property for sale so he can stop working on it in his 70s, and so the homes he and my mom built, where my brother and I were born on said property, don't get leveled by developers. That's like 10 million. Jesus, billions is a lot of money. Story 10. I would set aside $10 million in investments and live off the interest. The other $1.99 billion, I would also invest but use it to fund various community programs and scholarships. Story 11. After all fiduciary and legal situations were accounted for, I would probably spend over $1 billion almost immediately. Every relative would get their house paid for and a trust to provide them with passive income. I would set up scholarships, all designed to pay for the students, fund a manager, and exist in perpetuity. I would open an art center where attending classes, taking lessons, and renting the space is inexpensive or free. I would start a foundation and production company to operate and perform on the stage, and to organize artist calls and showings for the galleries within the space. I would hire or create my own company to design a few communities with the intention of providing durable, long-lasting, affordable or free housing, education, entertainment, and entrepreneurial spaces for the homeless and lower-income individuals. I would probably speed run my way to under 2 billion. I would probably slow down or stop at around 500 million and watch everything to make sure it's stable. Story 12. Destroy the current predatory housing market by building many apartments in major cities across the United States, and then set the rents at 40% to 50% below current levels. It would reduce homelessness and give people the ability to live in a place that doesn't require 2 or 3 jobs to pay for. Story 13. Invest just enough for retirement with a moderate living style. Use the rest to set up endowments and foundations to assist underserved, unhoused, and food insecure communities. No, this is not for karma. This has always been a lifelong dream. I don't need much. I'd rather help others. Story 14. I would bring music to my city, open smaller clubs across town, and get connected with a music circuit. I think with that kind of money, I could make a real transformation to a city. Story 15. I would build $1.5 billion worth of low-income housing, put most of the rest into a nonprofit to run, maintain, expand, and manage the housing, and set aside a small amount for me to retire. Story 16. Get 300,000 bundles of $5,000. Give it to family and random people. Even if I gave away 20 a day for 40 years, I'd still have some left over. Modern day budget Mansa Musa. And I still have $500 million for myself. Story 17. Buy the company where I work and make some serious changes. Purchase the apartment complexes where some of my enemies live and increase the rents on their units. And that is just the start, as I would have $500 million that I would need to live on and $1.5 billion in forget you money. Story 18. Figure out how much I need to disappear for the rest of my life and be comfortable. Then create a nonprofit foundation that focuses on community rehabilitation with the rest. Story 19. I would, of course, take care of my family first. Then, I would look for opportunities to help others. A single mother's house burns down? Buy her and her kids a new home. Buy apartment buildings and provide homes for the homeless. Have free kitchens where all can come and eat for free. Stuff like that. Story 20. I would keep 30 million and honestly spend the rest on doing good. Build some hospitals, feed the hungry. Actually, I can probably make do with 20 million if I'm being honest. Story 21. How much would it cost to buy a small town? I'd like to make my own town and have rules that actually make sense, and everyone would be such great neighbors. Everyone minds their own business but is always ready to lend a hand. No stealing, security cameras everywhere, and a security force that is not corrupted. Story 22. Buy the land around me, invest, and then get into logistics and assisting the ranchers in my area. Do everything I can to have essentially passive income but still help people. Story 23. I would start a nonprofit and a foundation. I would attempt to be the most direct and lowest overhead philanthropic organization possible. I would live an upper-middle-class lifestyle on 20 to 40 acres in a modest-sized home. Story 24. Take 1 million for myself, then dedicate time to using the money to help people in my local community part-time and continue my current career. I'd live a simple lifestyle so people assume I'm broke still. Story 25. Invest it in something that gives me 8 to 10% per annum. Keep 10 to 20 million for myself to buy cars, a cool house, etc., and then use the rest to help other people out who need the money. Rinse and repeat every year. Story 26. Buy a seat in Congress. Be the biggest moderate political figure out there, calling out the seat warmers that do absolutely nothing for the American people. Story 27. Once I took care of myself, friends, and family, I would really like a children's hospital wing named after me, or maybe part of a zoo, a homeless shelter, or a soup kitchen. I'm sure I could come up with something. Then I would give big tips to wait staff and courteous people and so on. Story 28. Not much different. Maybe I will start flying private and that is pretty much it. I guess I can also buy a property in Kyoto so I can stay there whenever I go. But I can already do that and also fly private, just did not want to burn money that way. At 2 billion, I will do whatever I want. Story 29. In order to pay off my debt, set my parents and in-laws up for life, build a house for my family, and contribute to local causes like the homeless shelter, youth programs, and the library. Maybe even campaign and make some actual changes to the government. Story 30. Invest it into something with recurring revenue, then fund as many humane orphanages, women's and family shelters as possible, and sponsor education, life, and employment skills. Also, fund a pro bono law firm to defend these people in court when the inevitable lawsuits happen from estranged partners, others looking to take advantage, or unfair abuses of justice. Story 31. Take $1 billion for myself and the other $1 billion. I'd change some lives for sure. I could never spend $1 billion in my lifetime, but I'd surely try hard to do it, setting me up for life. I'd work to make the other billion stretch for others as well, because why not? Story 32. Honestly, I would buy some companies with the explicit purpose of turning them into employee-owned businesses. I would want some investment back, but would not expect 100% back. Aside from that, I would just give my wife and my mother whatever type of lives they each want. Story 33. Put it to work. I am poor, and I know if I had $2 billion, I would spend it in a day. So I would put it in some kind of company shares, or I would start a project or small company so I can guarantee more money. Story 34. Spend $1 billion on advertisements and funding for an organization that does class consciousness and unionization education. Spend $1 billion on cancer research. Story 35. I know for a fact I would invest in cheaper housing for my community, and I'd spend at least 50% of it at a minimum for that. Then I would set up family and a few friends for life. The rest would go on blackjack and hookers. Story 36. Move to Japan, open a small business to keep me occupied, put aside a couple million to live off of and be safe in case there are some weird financial upheavals. Then find out how many homeless people you can feed and shelter for $1,997,000,000 before the money is gone. Story 37. Take care of my parents, set my kids up with a place to live, invest some, get a membership at a golf club, and most importantly, donate and volunteer at an organization that helps people with utilities and rent. They helped me out a couple of times over the past year when I was recovering from surgery and out of work. Story 38. Put aside 1/4 of it for now. Give the rest to friends, family, and charity. Get a nice house or two. Do some traveling. It would be a blast if it was anonymous and I could give it to friends and family, and they didn't know where it came from. I could just act like it happened to me too. Story 39. I hope I would use it to help people in difficult circumstances get a better life, but honestly, there is no telling what I would actually do. I can't even imagine how much money $1 million is in reality, like on your bank account and what it could get you, let alone $2 billion. Story 40. Move exactly where I want to move. Help anyone I care about to see a lot move near me. Still work, but with a very laid-back schedule. Not half-effort work, but make it clear that I can walk away at literally any time if administrators start to demand more. Or maybe even open my own shop, even if it operates at a reasonable loss. And probably buy a bar to hang out at if the financials aren't too annoying to deal with. Story 41. Big island, a couple of bikes, and maybe a boat. And stay there in a tiny home with just me, my couple of dogs, fox, raccoon, and a couple of sables, and live my life of peace. Should cure the depression, I would think. Story 42. Buy some land, build me a house, buy a car, get me a driver since I don't drive, donate $1 million to each of the charities that appear on the commercials, and $1 million to the projects I was born and raised in, and invest the rest. Story 43. Transfer half of it to my daughter. Buy a house with lots of land, new cars, and go on vacation. Then I would get movie cars built. 1966 and 1989 Batmobiles, Jurassic Park Jeep, Back to the Future DeLorean, General Lee, A-Team van, Mystery Machine, and a classic fire truck from the 1940s to 1950s. I would also donate to my local fire companies, specifically the one I used to belong to. They would get a new building and a new engine. Story 44. I've had this daydream about funding an organization that facilitates converting small and medium businesses to worker-owned. Basically, buy the business from the owner and transfer ownership to the workers through a process that ends when the initial investment is paid off. I think with $1 billion you could probably positively impact tens of thousands of lives this way in a very sustainable manner. Story 45. Make sure all of my friends' mortgages are paid off, all of our children have a trust with conditions, invest enough to maintain a certain lifestyle, take many vacations, and try to do some good in my city with much of it over the long term. Women's shelters, programs for underprivileged children, school programs, etc. Story 46. I would never accumulate $2 billion. I would start improving people's lives and petitioning for change as soon as my needs were met, which is like low single-digit millions. Story 47. Buy a house I really like with all the upgrades, great television, sound system, etc. After that, I would open up a cat sanctuary with my wife and hire a veterinarian and staff. Maybe also a big cat sanctuary too. I wouldn't want to exploit them, but if they weren't well enough to go back into the wild, I would want them to have their best, safest life in an environment that was as stimulating as possible. I travel a lot and maybe establish a foundation to help struggling families with veterinary bills for their dogs and cats. I'm allergic to dogs but would like to help families still. Story 48. I would take a couple million and do low-stakes, accessible investing, just enough to live on the interest. I'd then take the remaining 1.993 billion and handpick 4,000 volunteer-led community organizations across the United States and give them each $500,000. Nobody should have $2 billion. What would you even do with that kind of money? Story 49. Buy a huge chunk of land near a river or a coast with good hydroelectric potential and start my own town. Build a futuristic-looking glass city. Actually, I might need all of you lot's $2 billion as well. I probably would start a building company and build homes and sell them at cost to people on the condition they do not sell them for 15 years. Try and solve the housing crisis. Story 50. Build an underground oubliette shaped like a large underground maze. Lure Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin into it, then supply them with canned food and water indefinitely through small service elevators. Story 51. First, pay off all my debts and my family and close friends' debts. I'd then set up trust funds for my kids, say $10 million each. That would allow me to use the bulk of the money to focus on improving this world. I would want to start a charity or foundation whose primary focus is to reduce homelessness, improve educational opportunities, provide better pro bono legal representation, help families reduce medical debt, provide free tax preparation services, ensure children are getting enough to eat, supplement local school budgets to ensure they do not lack resources, and the like. Just make people's lives easier. I would also want to use a fraction of the money to get decent folks elected to important positions, but that's probably a pipe dream.